Welcome again to a session of Yeshiva Classroom, and this is being recorded on February 25th, 24, February 25th, 24. I want to cover a very important subject that I feel that many of us don't really understand, in that we can't put everything together regarding the covenant that God made with the Jewish people, right? So we're going to try to simplify the covenant with all the mentions of it in the Torah. So, basically, God is an altruistic entity, and that He wants to do good. And He created man, and He gave him part of a God-given feeling, an asset, free will. He gave man the ability to choose between right and wrong, and to do good, and to strive for perfection, and at the same time, holiness. Because that's the name of the game. He wants to strive for perfection. He wants man to be happy. And the real happiness is in the next world. Because as we see in the Torah, aka Old Testament to the Gentile people, the only Bible that we have, the God-given Bible directly to the Jewish people, that they stood in front of Mount Sinai and heard the emanations. Not that he spoke like the other quote-unquote religions, where he spoke to his son, or where he spoke to the individual in a tent, epiphany, and they in turn told all the people that which they heard. But the Jewish people, they're from Missouri. I have relatives in Missouri. And they all stood there, 3 million people, in front of Mount Sinai, and they heard the words of the Torah. They didn't get it from a hearsay, or they got it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And it started out with God planting Adam, the first man, into the Garden of Eden. Everything was provided for him. All he had to do was strive for perfection and holiness, just like Abraham. You have to note these quotes that I'm giving you, the sources. Abraham in Genesis, right? The first book of the Bible. Write it down. Get a pen. Got a paper. Everybody's got a pen, but you got to get the paper, right? You got it. 26 and 26:5 in Genesis, Bereshit, the Hebrew. We see that Abraham, on his own, figured out that there is one God, and the purpose and the source from which everything cometh, and from which man is to strive for. And that is the holiness or perfection. And Adam was placed in that garden to strive for perfection or holiness, so he can gain the soul world, because the soul returns to God who gave it. The soul returns to God who gave it. That's in Koheles. That's the book that King Solomon wrote. That's in Koheles chapter 12, verse 7. Right? Right, write that down. Koheles Ecclesiastes in English. So Adam was placed in the garden, and he's given free will, observe, rationalize, come up with conclusions, the one uniqueness of a one God. And that was the order that God brought into this planet Earth, into Adam specifically. And before you know it, it was chaos. You see, God had put some roadblocks, some stumbling blocks for Adam to overcome so they could gain more rewards for overcoming those roadblocks, And the problem was that he couldn't overcome them. Even though God spoke to Adam, told him the work and guard the garden. He didn't have to do any work in the garden. He just had to observe, rationalize Ruach HaKodesh. But he had to be on guard and guarding the positive commandments, the thoughts that God gave him, and not get involved with the negatives that God put in front of him. The Torah only puts two negatives in front of him: the not to eat from the tree of knowledge, and not to eat from the tree of life. But whatever way, through temptation, snake, the evil inclination. Why do we need the evil inclination? That's for man to be tested. I afflicted you and tested you to see what is in your heart. See if you kept the commandments. That's in Deuteronomy 8:3. I afflicted you and tested you to see what is in your heart. Heart means mind. See whether you kept the commandments. And before you know it, Adam went down the tubes. His son committed murder. There was promiscuity between animals and man, and all kinds of evil things that man was not to do, because he knew what was right and wrong. That was breathed into him. And in Genesis 2:7, God breathed into the nostrils of man from himself. He breathed the soul into man. And they say, what is a soul? What is a soul? I want to ask you something. This is what I brought up before I walked too long on it. You know, when you do a good deed, when you help an old lady cross the street, or you give charity and the person appreciates it, or you give your mother, your spouse a present, you feel good. You feel good if the person enjoys it. And that feeling is what we need to perpetuate, to accrue holiness points, because try to figure out where that feeling emanates from, and you're not going to do it, because it's your soul, S-O-U-L. That's your soul, and the soul needs soul food, and the good deeds is how it's fed, and it accumulates them, and it turns it in at the end of our demise after 120 years. And we get a seat in the next world, and hopefully it's not destroyed. Rabbi Chaim Luzata said you need a 70% mark. Okay, so Adam messed up, and God chose someone else, and he chose Noah. He destroyed those creations of his, and who knows what kind of dinosaurs and all those other things that we find, how old they might be. But we count from the beginning of the creation of the planet Earth, which is over 5,000 years. So, so he brought in Noah, and he gave him 7 commandments that we know of. I'm sure he worked hard with him, but 7 commandments are that there's one God. You should not blaspheme the name of God and treat it lightly. You have to respect. You should not commit adultery, murder, stealing, set up courts, and be kind to animals. 7 mitzvahs. The Jews have these commandments, and they embellish them and added to them as God saw fit. But we see that before you know it, the Tower of Babel came into existence. People were evil. They wanted to fight against God. They built a tower. And it says, you have the word, Nasa, Nishma, Nasa, we should understand, we should do, we should understand. So when they were building the tower, they understood incorrectly. Because when the man asked for mortar, and he gave him water, there was fights breaking out because he did not understand. Nasa v'nishma. He didn't understand. And today, just like we have the righteous people amongst us, they understand. And, we have the Vilna Gaon, the Chavetz Chaim, Maimonides, Nachmanides, all understood, but they heard a little differently, right? Understood. Nasa v'nishma. Right? Yeah, so that's what we have to understand. Understanding is okay in different ways where you get it. But important halacha, that we know is all according to the directives that came from Sinai. So he saw it didn't fit, Noah didn't fit, so he examined the different people around him, and he came up with the resume of Abraham, and he goes into detail. We know exactly what Abraham stood for and what he did, and Genesis, write it down. Genesis 12:4, Genesis 12:8, he built altars and he spoke about the oneness and the uniqueness of the Creator, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's what he spoke about. He went to war to save his nephew Lot. He did all kinds of great things. He pleaded with God not to destroy the evil people of Sodom and Amorah. So God picked him. He picked him, he chose him, and he said, I'm making a covenant with him. That's right. This is the covenant simplified. But let me explain further. That's how they did it in those days. God wanted a partner, and he found Abraham and his descendants, and he made a covenant. And in chapter 15 in Genesis, Abraham had a vision, and he saw God come down in the guise of a fire torch and smoky furnace, and he went between the divided animals, the 3 heifers, the 3 goats, the 3 lambs, and 1 pigeon dove and 1 pigeon, which he did not divide. And God, so to speak, acquired this covenant together with Abraham, because Abraham was was going to bring the carbon, the offerings, to this burning torch, and as we see from the smoky furnace that resulted from the bringing of the altar, the offering. So, that's 15, chapter 15. And he, at that time, delineates the boundaries. I think it's chapter 15, verse 17. He delineates the boundaries of the land of Canaan that I'm going to give to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's why it says in chapter 17, if you look in 17 Genesis, 17:7, 17:21, it says the covenant will go to the posterity of Isaac, not Ishmael. Go to the posterity of Isaac throughout the generations. And that's how we received the gifts from God. One being that we have the land of Canaan, and we see today Gaza, it's part of the land of Canaan. And they're going to be driven out because God gave that to the Jewish people. That's one thing he gave. And the other thing he gave was the gift of a large population from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we say in Chronicles that Divrei HaYamim, that we say every day, he made a covenant with Abraham. He made an oath, O-A-T-H, with Isaac, and he made a chok, a decree with Jacob, that the covenant will pass through them into the present day generation of Jewish people where he's bringing us back. And unfortunately, we have transgressed. Like the Olos, when they transgress, they are brought to task. 400 years our forefather had to suffer because of his transgressions. So that's what happened in Genesis. Isaac toured the land, but did not go down to Egypt because he was shown all the lands of Canaan, which was given to them after the fourth generation, because the sin of the Amori was not complete. The sins of the Canaanim, the residents of Canaan, were evil. They offered human sacrifices. And because of that, God drove them out, and it was not complete until the fourth generation. And that's when the Jewish people took over that land. But before, I'm getting ahead of myself, in that the Jewish people came out of Egypt after the 400 years of being mistreated, and they were to hear the words of the covenant. All of them. All 3,600,000 men, as enumerated in the Torah. 600,000 men that were fit for war, women of that same age, and the older and younger people, total 3 million. It says over there that God told the Jewish people, observe the covenant and listen to my word. In 19:6, in Exodus. In 19:8, God came down in the thickness of the cloud, and the people heard God speak to Moses, and the people heard and they believed forever. So they came to Mount Sinai. This is on the sixth and 7th of the month of Sivan, right? We have Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, right? They went out in the month of Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. So what happened over there? They heard the 10 emanations, the 10 commandments. They heard the mishpatim, all the civil and torts that people involve themselves in everyday life. And they gave, there were examples given. And in chapter 24, God tells, in Exodus chapter 24, he tells Moses to read all of the preceding history of the world. And he did that. And then he said, write it in a book. The book is called Sefer HaBris, the book of the covenant. Right? They were talking about the covenant. The covenant simplified. So he wrote it in the book, and God told him to read it to the people. Sefer HaBris, the book of the covenant. And he read it to the people. And then the people said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen and understand. That's the book of the covenant. That's it. We only had one covenant, and that was at Mount Sinai. And that was given to Abraham, but it was expounded in Mount Sinai. But we also have another allusion and understanding of the covenant in Deuteronomy. What's that talking about? It says over there in Deuteronomy that it says over there in 29, in chapter 29:8, gather all the people that are here and pass through the covenant with the imprecations. Pass through the covenant with the imprecations. All the people that were there, they could pass through the covenant and become members of the Jewish people. Those that were there, and those that were not there in the future generations, all passed through the covenant at this time. And it lists the different peoples of the tribes, the princes and the heads of the tribes, and the water carriers and the hewers of wood, because they many came out when they saw all the miracles of that God had performed for the Jewish people. They also came. Again, 29:8. Chapter 29, verse 8 in Deuteronomy. Assemble and pass through the covenant together with its imprecations. What do you mean imprecations? Imprecations are punishments and warnings of punishments that will befall the people if they do not observe the commandments. And there are 98 punishments. To all of us and the fathers, they had to suffer 400 years for a transgression. But the Jewish people and their descendants will continuously be plagued as a whole if they transgress the Torah. If they transgress the Torah. And the sign of the covenant is bris, the circumcision of the newborn. Circumcision of the newborn. So, you put it all together. But, over there in 29, it talks about all kinds of horrific punishments that we can, that we and our people have experienced exile, and you'll know no rest from on the sole of your feet, soles of your feet. And here we go from one community to the next community, to East New York, to Brownsville, to New Lodge, to Auburn, to Far Rockaway, and we got the 5 towns. Oh, this is heaven. No, it's not. Yeah, God wants to be punished, and no matter what, you can have the best services in the world, best security in the world, best knowledgeable people studying the enemy. Still, God can get through. Look at Gaza. Okay, so that's it. We basically got it. There's the covenant was given to Abraham. Covenant was made with him, and the people were given the gift of the land by God, and the numerous peoples that will come from the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then it expands in 29 with the writing, enumerating the warnings that could become very horrific in their punishment. But those that are left, we must bring out the word, to the people, to our fellow Jews, and that means trying to tell them to look into this video. This is tape number 474. Come, call me, leave a message. We want to have a study hall from Sundays 10 to 4, where we can give the books out that will give you the information like I just gave you, and more. And it's important that there's a lot of work we have to do to spread the teachings, because that's our job. Right? We're a light into the nations. They have learned a lot, but we have lost a lot in trying to teach them and not being able to teach ourselves. We want to set up an urgent care Torah helpline. An urgent care Torah helpline. Torah urgent care Torah helpline, where people can call 24/6. Like Hasala, the group that goes out on emergencies for physical ailments. We want individuals to have a telephone to answer questions that people might have wherever they might be concerning Torah. So that's important. But we want to have a study hall. There's just so many things, and we're not getting to where we want to be. So I'm asking for volunteers. Here's the number. Leave a message. 295-4233. 295-4233. And that is, we can get together and put one of these projects into fruition. It'll be very big. So right now you can if you have a question on Talmud, you can call Rabbi Mordechai. He's at 347-499-4893. Right? Anything on Talmud? Have a question? Son's homework, where he's learning, problem, questions he might have on the Talmud. Give him a call. He's available all the time. Right? You have his number for help in Talmud, 347-499-4893. Now, you know, in chapter 32 in Exodus, the Jews went away from, the leadership, again, the prophets and leaders are charismatic. They have the ability to influence people through their inborn quality of leadership and wherewithal that people follow them. It's natural, and that's what the prophets had. Prophets had that ability to influence people naturally to be followed. Moses, our teacher, also had that ability. And he was a prophet, and he led the people, and the people followed him. He was a leader. But as soon as the leader dies, his leadership goes by the wayside. Where was Moshe? Where was Moses? Where is Moses, the people asked? It's, 40 days, and Moses is not here. So they set up a oracle in the form of a calf, and he said perhaps the message will come to the oracle and give it to us. They had calculated wrong, incorrectly, and it was taken as a bad choice towards idolatry, it seemed like. And Moses came down, he saw this, and he threw the tablets down rather than commit to watering down or compromising or making a new laws and customs and directives. No, you can't reinvent the wheel. You can't reinvent Torah. There's so far you can go, and that's it. So what happened? Moses came down, and he said, "Who is for me?" And the tribe of Levi, 100%, came out and said, "We will serve the Lord our God without any questions." And they tried and executed 3,000 people who went after this oracle as a god, like as an idol, and Moses had prayed for them, right? And that's what happened. So at the end, when the people had been executed, God sent out another plague in Exodus chapter 32-35. Why another plague? Why? The evil ones were executed. But it's the ones that stood on the fence. The ones that stood on the fence and saw everything happening and didn't do anything. Yeah, here's a number. You want to get involved? Or you want to sit on a fence and say, yeah, I believe, I'm with him, but they're not involving themselves. The plague went out for them. And that's why we're asking you, give us a call, leave a message. It's pitifully poor to see the response of what we're getting from individuals. Where do we go from here? There's a lot to talk about. And one thing is, we have to learn Talmud. Talmud, Torah, Keneged Kulam. We have to build up our souls, because King Solomon wrote in the book Koheles, Ecclesiastes, the soul returns to God who gave it, and it's given a mark. Will it pass or not? And good deeds accompanying the dead, the Chesed Shalem is coming early to the synagogue, helping the poor, giving charity, dowering the bride. It's all listed. But Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Talmud Torah, the study of Torah, is equal to all of them. So that's what we want to do. We want to learn Torah. And I don't know how many of you all ordered the book Behold the People by Rabbi Millers, who gives ideology and walks us through all the books of the Torah. It's Behold the People by Rabbi Millers. By Rabbi Millers. You can get it at Amazon. You call them up, and I think it's about $15. Or you can, and at the same time, order a Talmud of one portion of it. I think it costs about $10. And over there you got to call Mesorah Publications. Mesorah Publications at 4401 2nd Avenue, Brooklyn. Telephone number 718-921-9000. 718-921-9000. And everything, this is a Talmud. It's given in English. And you have to read the footnotes. It's very simple English. If I tell you, it's so simple. You order the Talmud, you order the book Behold the People, and you want to take the next step. Don't be a Jew that comes home every night or on Shabbos and it becomes a couch potato. Listen to the TV, and it has good intentions. You have to break that mold. Now, one thing we do every day, every time we're on the air, we learn Talmud, and it's simple. Talmud time. It's Talmud time, and we start with the first. We're only going 3-4 words at a time. That's all we're doing. 3-4 words at a time, all in English, and here we start from the very beginning. From the very beginning of. You have to read it in English and read the footnotes. It says, "Me'amosai korana shema b'yavin." From when to when do we read the evening prayer of Shema in the evening? What are the parameters? From what time to what time? And the answer is from the time the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. From the time the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. So that is the time when we can begin to say the Shema Yisrael prayer. From the time that the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. This is from the Talmud, right? And what time is that? It's from when the 3 stars come out. Everybody agrees. Rabbi Judah Hanassi compiled the Talmud, compiled the Mishnah into writing. He said, took all the opinions, all the people, all the schools who had gotten this teaching, and they all usually didn't come up with the same answer, a little bit different. But when it came to the Shema Yisrael prayer, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one, everyone agrees that to say the Shema Yisrael in order to accrue points, you have to start when the 3 stars come out. When the 3 stars come out, that's the onset parameter. That's when you can begin to say it for credit. Right? Credit. We're all looking for credit. The question that the Gemara answered. So why did it say? Why didn't it say 3 stars? Why does this say when the 3 stars come out? Why did it say from the time that the Kohanim entered to eat their truma? So the Torah answer says that's to teach us things by the way. Where are the Kohanim? Where they come from? Number 2, why did they? What is truma? What do you mean? Now they can enter to eat. Now they can come enter to eat their truma. What is truma? So we go tangential, and we say there's a subject of truma and tahar, which is spiritual uncleanliness, which can be accrued in several ways. And if you are tomei, spiritual unclean, you have to go outside the temple and wait until the 3 stars come out. And then you could come in. You can go to the mikveh the next day. Come when the 3 stars come out. Right? So everybody agrees to that when the 3 stars come out, we can say our Shema Yisrael prayer. In the end parameter, there are 3 different opinions. One said you could say it till midnight, 12 o'clock. That's as far as you can say it to, in order to get credit. Another opinion says until the morning star arises, which is, I think, 72 minutes before sunrise. Right? So it brings down one of the rabbis over there. They're still doing the Mishnah. Brings down one of the rabbis and says his sons came from a party and it was past midnight, and they asked if they could say the Shema Yisrael prayer for credit. And he said, sure, you can say the Shema Yisrael prayer for credit, but the majority of the rabbis said you can only say it till midnight. So there's a problem here. So what they answer, what the Mishnah, right? The Mishnah answers Mishnah, Gemara, which speaks it out, and the Talmud is all together. Yeah, there's a problem here. So the answer is that really you can only say it till midnight. Excuse me. You can only say it until Omer Yad Shachar, when the morning stars come out. but they made the law that it should be till midnight. Why? Because a person will say, you know what, it's 5 to 12 and I'm tired, I'm going to take a little nap and I'll wake up in 5 minutes and I'll say the Shema Yisrael prayer. So what happens, you'll overrun the 5 minutes and you'll wind up 10 after 12. So that's to get the people, they shouldn't commit a transgression. They set the bar much earlier, but the really end parameter is when the Sheyala Omer HaShachar, when the morning star arises. You can say it till then, so that you may not be fearful of not transgression by not saying that prayer, that prayer of the evening, Shema Yisrael prayer of the evening. So I think we covered a lot of things, and one thing that we want to emphasize is the fact that the covenant was given, and chapter 24 in Exodus says, you wrote it down in the book, Sefer HaBris, it's a book of the covenant, and Deuteronomy goes into great detail in saying that if you transgress, you will be liable to any one of these punishments, which are many and quite severe. So basically, Abraham received the commandments and was a party to the covenant, and he as a sign of this commitment, he had himself circumcised, and that is a sign, the sons of the covenant, B'nai Bris, sons of the covenant we are today. So 24 gives that charge that we are to read that book of the covenant. So we cherish those directives that we took upon ourselves, that God gave us the wherewithal to choose us. For I know Abraham will teach his children, his household, the ways of God. And that's what we do, because we follow the teachings of the Torah, which was brought down to us and given as a people that were chosen. And we came into the land of, the Deuteronomy has the last month before his death, a series of narratives that he gives over to the people, warning them and teaching them. And he says over there that when you come into the land, what is it you should not make any covenants with them. You should not intermarry with them, because you're a holy people. I've chosen you as a treasured people from all the peoples on the face of the earth, not because you are the largest people, but because I love you and I made a covenant with you. And that's how it is. When we came into the land, we are to follow the directives. In 26, chapter 26, Deuteronomy, that you should, by keeping the commandments, directives, and teachings that you are to perform, by doing so, you have distinguished God as your distinguished Hashem as your God, and He has distinguished you as His people. And so, when we come in to the land, we should set up, like a mezuzah, set up stones and put them on Mount Abel and plaster them and write the whole Torah on the stones. That's in chapter 27, and he lists 12 sentences that are transgressions that a person can do when he is in secret. But God is aware of all those happenings that you do secretively, and therefore you should be on guard not to commit these. That's in chapter 27. And in 28, God says, 1 to 14, chapter 28, you will have an idyllic life. You have peace, prosperity, charity, and happiness, and give our blessings. So that is what our reward is for keeping the mitzvahs. And if not, from 15 on, you will have all kinds of horrific punishments. So that is paramount. And we wanted to emphasize the very beginning of the book, of this lesson, the teachings, covenant that we accepted, that was given to Abraham, because it says Genesis 18:19, try and know Abraham will teach his children the ways of God, of charity, justice, and kindness. And that is what we are to live by. And being that God knows the future, because He's involved with free will, because free will, man has the ability to choose between right and wrong, but God determines whether that act will go into fruition. So, review, look up, and read the whatever you can. But you have to have a Chumash, which is the Jewish Bible, and read the chapter of the week, the chapters of the week. Get a Rabbi Miller, Behold the People, and also the Talmud. I gave you the address where you get a paper edition. It's $10. So let me know if you did any of these things, because I don't want to be talking just for the sake of talking. It's 516-295-4233. 516-295-4233. And it's not a laughing matter, because it's our soul. It's what we strive for. It's life after death. Deuteronomy 30 verse 19. I put before you life and death. Choose life. Choose life. I put before you life and death. Choose life so that you may live. So that you may live happily in this world, and more so in the next world, in the soul world, where the soul returns to God. And remember, in Kehelis 12, the last sentence in Kehelis, Ecclesiastes, which Solomon wrote, the wisest man, he said, some of the matter when everything is considered, being that he went after all kinds of things in his lifetime, some of the matter when all things are considered, the observance and the performance of the commandments and directives and ordinances is all that counts. Is all that counts. So try to do as much as you can. Deeds, and learn. You don't need a rabbi, you don't need a teacher. Everything, the art scrolls in your teacher, is your teacher. Talmud. Let me know if you can pass one of these steps. So let me conclude by saying that, the famous sage Hillel said, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, what am I? If not now, when? If not now, when? We can't procrastinate, and we must keep on learning. Must keep on learning. And I see I have exactly 3 minutes left, and where shall we go? That the people, chapter 24 in Exodus says over there that God appeared in a vision and ate and drank with the people, because he saw the people offering monoliths of the altar offerings, and they ate and they drank and they answered and they gave questions over to Moses that they didn't understand, and God saw all this. He was so happy, and as a result he said, make 25:8 in Exodus. Make for me a mishkan. Make for me a tabernacle, so that I may dwell amongst you. So I might dwell amongst you. And everything was brought down, all the specifications for the king of the world to dwell in, and everything was studied. And then in chapter 35, the command says, build. And then after they got all the offerings, the 13 offerings, they began to build under the leadership of Moses, of course, who he had all the instructions, and then the two contractors, Bezalel ben Uri and Athaliah ben Achimelech, Achalia ben Achisamach. Yeah, so with those words, you got to take a step from your old mold and come into a new mode. Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam. All the best.